Well guys, I can't believe it, but it is finally time for my biggest project yet, the long-awaited MF Doom Madvillainy vs. Food sample versus. For those not familiar with the series, we're going to be going over every single sample on both MF Doom and producer Madlib's collab record Madvillainy and Doom's solo record Food, and comparing which album has the better samples track by track. And if the ludicrous video length wasn't enough to demonstrate how daunting of a task this is going to be, for reference, my other sample breakdown videos usually have around 30 to 40 samples total. This video, on the other hand, has nearly 200 to go through. Everything from Mozart to Sesame Street to Street Fighter to the freaking Bible, MF Doom's two classic projects are absolutely jam-packed with sample after sample after sample. So if you want to join me and learn about every single one across these two masterpieces, first off, subscribe to the channel with the bell rung. I think only 9% of my viewers are currently subscribed. Gotta get that guy to at least 10. And without further ado, let's get started with round one. As for the first song we're covering today, it's gonna be just Madvillainy's intro track, The Illest Villains, as part of a little bonus round. See, those familiar with the track list of both albums know that Madvillainy outnumbers the amount of tracks Food has 22 to 15. So I had to do a bit of rearranging in order to make sure the rounds were evenly distributed. And you can check the video chapters below to see what exactly is going against what, but basically I decided to cover the Madvillainy skits in bonus rounds, and added my two favorite track remixes seen on the Food Deluxe into the last two rounds to make it a clean 17, no drizzy. Anyway, circling back to the Illest Villains, let's check out each of the 9 samples it has. First up, we've got the track's intro section, which samples the 1972 Sun Ra track, Contrast. One down, like 185 something to go. Progress is progress. Next up, we transition into the main loop of the instrumental, which comes from the track Beach Trip off of the soundtrack to the TV show Hawaii Five-0, composed by Morton Stevens.
Is turned loose to strike terror into the hearts of men.
And now we get the first of many vocal excerpts from movies or other sorts of visual media across Madvillainy. This first one coming from the 1989 documentary film, A Documentary History of the Cult Villains, or The Documented History of the Fabulous Villains in Other Regions.
As luck would have it, the then unknown actor stepped into the role originally intended for Lon Chaney Sr. As luck would have it, one of America's two most powerful...
Now, this documentary is actually sampled across multiple tracks on this album, and it's kind of a motif you'll notice with a bunch of Madvillainy samples. The repeated uses give the album a very well-defined aesthetic, that of course being the whole supervillain persona MF Doom is famous for. Same goes for some of the Food samples we'll see a little bit later, but overall, I think this stylistic choice is incredibly cool, and an excellent way to make each album feel like its own little world. Back to the samples though, we've now got another dialogue sample, this time from the trailer for the 1931 horror classic Frankenstein.
Spine-tingling, blood-chilling story that stuns your emotions. Frankenstein.
Don't touch that!
Tyria.
Don't touch that!
The villains themselves were...
As for sample number 5, you guessed it, another chop from a movie trailer, this movie in question being the 1953 crime drama The Wild One.
We got this town on the rope.
Get to work on these boys. Anybody bring a gun for me?
Yeah, here's one.
Get to work on these boys. Anybody bring a gun for me? Yeah, here's...
And continuing with the horror movie samples, there's one from the 1941 film Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Man is not truly one, but two. Now supposing we could break that chain. It's not one, but two.
Typical villain releases.
And who would have thought, yet another horror movie sample present from 1957's I Was a Teenage Werewolf.
I know they're going to catch me, but don't let anyone see me like that. Please, doctor, help me. I know they're going to catch me, but don't let anyone see me like that. Please, doctor, help me.
And a sequel.
And fun fact for those who don't know, this movie is actually the inspiration for the title of the SpongeBob episode, I Was a Teenage Gary. You know, the one where they all turned into snails. Nothing to do with MF Doom or anything, I only bring this up because that episode terrified me as a child. Please tell me I'm not the only one, right? But back to the samples again. Sample number 8 continues the horror movie streak with a line from the 1958 version of the movie Dracula.
Dracula, the bedeviled master of all that is evil.
And a sequel.
Master of all.
Both the villains were to meet in...
And finally, ending off with a return of Frankenstein, though this time through a trailer for the 1942 sequel film The Ghost of Frankenstein.
Father was Frankenstein. That your mother was the lightning.
Were to meet in...
Your mother was the lightning.
Alright, and I'm about 13 minutes into recording this, and we have just finished one of the 39 tracks that I have to get through today. I hope you grab something to eat, because we're going to be here a while. Up next is our first proper round of the verses, with Accordion versus Beef Rap, with a pretty lopsided sample pool across the two tracks. In a somewhat rare moment for Madvillainy's track list, Accordion only has a single sample to check out, compared to Beef Rap, which has 12. But of course, the sample flip of the 2002 Daedalus track Experience remains as probably the most famous across Madvillainy's entire track list.
Living off borrowed time, the clock ticks faster. That'll be the hour they knock the slick blaster.
For how legendary this accordion sample is, you might be surprised to learn that in the original song, the instrument being played isn't actually an accordion. That's right, it technically comes from the Magnus 391 electric chord organ, which, true to its name, is an organ. Thankfully though, the sampled musician Daedalus would right this wrong by playing an actual accordion for Madvillain in both the song's music video as well as some live performances of the song. Now as for Beef Rap, like I said, it's got quite a few more samples to go through, starting with the song's intro, which samples a scene from what's widely considered the first ever hip-hop motion picture, 1983's Wild Style.
Yo, but I'm not gonna wait for her, man. I haven't eaten all day. How am I gonna do this, man?
Don't wait for her, man. Don't wait for her. I'll tell you what, man.
I haven't eaten all day. How am I gonna do this, man?
Don't wait for her, man. Don't wait for her. I'll tell you what.
As I said earlier, Food, like Madvillainy, features a lot of prominent repeated vocal samples from outside media. Although instead of the samples emphasizing the theme of villainy, most of them are about, well, food. Who would have thunk it? Kinda like this next sample from the pilot episode of the 1964 cartoon Klondike Cat, titled Honor at Stake.
Being terrible, Klondike Cat, savoir-faire has been stealing food everywhere.
I'll get you some lunch. I'll hook you up with something. I got a little back, no problem.
I mean, I really cannot think of a better example. The track literally just samples the word food. But onto a sample unrelated to food, we have a pretty common one across the album coming from Season 1, Episode 17 of the 1981 Spider-Man cartoon, Cannon of Doom.
What happened to your hand?
Not only does this sample create the first and second instrumental of the track, but there are also many vocal chops present from the episode's antagonist, Dr. Doom, who of course was a massive inspiration for MF Doom's supervillain persona. Very nice touch. Next we have another cartoon sample with the phrase bread and butter being ripped from the 1942 short The Early Bird Dude It.
Bread and butter. Bread and butter.
I'd really like some soup.
Bread and butter.
And moving now from animation to live action, we've got a sample from the end credits of the pilot episode of The Late Show with David Letterman, aired in 1982.
Here you will find food for your body, as well as comfort for your troubled mind. Here you will find food for your body, as well as comfort for your troubled mind.
Food adjacent sample number 5 comes from the 1991 kaiju film Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah.
Oh, food at last. Oh, food at last.
Followed by food adjacent sample number 6 from the 1976 science fiction film Logan's Run.
What other food? Fish and plankton. What other food? Fish.
Followed in turn by food adjacent sample number 7 from the 1972 blaxploitation science fiction comedy The Thing with Two Heads.
Well, the night the cop got killed, Willie and I stayed at my place. The next morning I went to the store to get some food.
Which, get this, tells the story of a racist white man whose head is transplanted onto a black man's body, and hijinks ensue. And now we get a sample that personally infuriated me for hours since I couldn't for the life of me find the original clip. And just follow me here. The phrase "I'll save you" is lifted from a segment of the children's educational TV series The Electric Company, in the segment called The Adventures of Letterman, in which Gene Wilder, aka Willy Wonka, plays a superhero named Letterman whose power is the ability to change physical objects by swapping the letters in them.
Letterman!
I'm Letterman. Help. I'll save you.
They arrested me.
I'll save you.
Thank you.
Sorry, I know that's a lot of unnecessary details, but like, these last two samples are just so fucking weird to me, I had to share them. Anyway, sample 10 thankfully takes us back to actual songs, with the repeated phrase of "Would you like a snack" coming from the 1971 Frank Zappa track of the same name, off of the soundtrack to the musical film 200 Motels, co-directed by Zappa himself.
La la la. Would you like a snack? Would you like a snack?
Thanks for the drink.
Second to last one here, we have a glass breaking sound effect from the 1962 track The Chase by Kenyon Hopkins. And last but not least, we have a drum sample from the 1976 track by Mike Longo, Angel of Love.
Beef rap could lead to getting teeth capped or even a reef from armed dudes on some grief crap.
And man, is it refreshing to finally hear Doom's voice again after all of those random vocal chops. Now as for which song wins the first round, well the samples on Beef Rap are all fairly cool. I think the iconic factor of accordion sample overshadows them, even if it's not technically an accordion. So Madvillainy will get the first point. Now we move on to the next round, Meat Grinder vs. Hoe Cakes. Already a really strong showing from both albums here. These two are major highlights in the respective track lists. But as for the samples, as you can maybe expect, Hoe Cakes outnumbers Meat Grinder 6-2. So starting off with Meat Grinder, we've got its intro sampled from the 1969 track Sleeping in a Jar by the band Mothers of Invention. And yes, for those unaware, this is technically another Frank Zappa sample, since he was a part of the Mothers of Invention when this track was released. As for the second and final sample on the track, we have the main instrumental coming from the 1975 song by Lou Howard and the All-Stars, Hula Rock.
Borderline schizo, certified tits, dough, quarter wine, order grind, 8:45, let's go.
You know, I never would have associated the instrumental on Meat Grinder with the phrase hula rock, but for whatever reason, it makes so much sense to me in the context of the sample track. But on to Hoe Cakes, we'll start with the iconic beatbox drums and the super vocal chop, which are both from the 1987 JJ Fad track Supersonic.
Supersonic. Keep your hoes in check.
Such a strange choice to use as the main percussive elements for a song, but it all comes together perfectly when combined with the sample that comes in as Doom starts rapping, which is from Anita Baker's 1986 song Sweet Love.
On his own throne, the boss like King Cooper. On the microphone, he flossed the ring. Average MCs.
Also fun fact, there's actually a line off of GNX that references this exact Anita Baker track. Also, for those who don't know, MF Doom produced almost all of the tracks on Food by himself, and so you can find the instrumental for Hoe Cakes and a few others on the record under the name Jasmine Blossoms on his Special Herbs instrumental compilation. We get into the smaller samples now, we reach the first interpolation of the video. Doom's opening line on Hoe Cakes is a reference to the 1988 EPMD track Jane.
I have a girl and she wants me to duca. Why didn't you? I would have been.
I got this girl and she wants me to duca. I told her I'll come scoop her around 8, she said.
Pretty interesting considering how memorable this opening line is that it's actually an interpolation. The more you know, I guess. After this, we have a sample between the transition from the main beat to the song's outro, which is a sound effect from a certain video game that you could probably guess the title of. This MF Doom guy, he's quite clever. Moving on now to the outro samples, first a clip of this smooth-ass trumpet from the 1980 Starship Orchestra track, New York, New York. Not to be confused with the Frank Sinatra track of the same name, or the city, I guess.
It's free enterprise! And I'm not gonna let some blasted government...
And finally, we've got another clip of that same Canon of Doom Spider-Man episode. And spoiler alert, this is nowhere near the last time you're gonna see this one.
Spider-Man! How long is all this gonna take, Doom? I will not advise you.
This is definitely tougher than the first round for me, but I think I am gonna go with Hoe Cakes here. When it comes to a lot of these rounds, I'm gonna judge mainly based on the most prominent samples that appear on these songs, and here I just prefer the Anita Baker beatbox combo over the decently cool hula rock flip. Now next up, we have another bonus round going over the track Bistro. And given the song's main purpose of just adding to the atmosphere of the record, you bet there are some pretty sweet samples present. First off, that luxurious glistening instrumental comes courtesy of Atlantic Starr's 1983 track Second to None.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the debut grand opening.
We've also got a looping vocal excerpt of the phrase "How do you do" from Season 5, Episode 3 of the show Macmillan and Wife, titled Aftershock.
How do you do?
How do you do? I've actually been waiting.
Madvillain, Bistro, bed and breakfast, bar, grill, cafe.
Next up, a phone ringing noise apparently from the 1977 movie Slapshot.
Yesterday's.
And finally, we have the tiny sample literally appearing in the last second of the song from MC8's 1996 song Thuggin' It Up.
Rolling on these. Bear with me, cause this like this pussy.
Big Hookie and Baba, Laundromat.
Bear with me, cause this.
And hey, that was actually a pretty quick one to get through, which I'll take when I can considering what's coming up very, very soon. But not soon enough, since up next we have Raid vs Potholderz with sample totals of 3 and 5 respectively. Starting of course with Raid Shadow Legends, we've got its jazzy intro sampled from the track Nardis by legendary pianist Bill Evans. After this though, we get another pretty legendary flip on Madvillainy in the track's main instrumental, coming from the 1972 track by Osmar Melito and Quarteto Forma, America Latina.
How doom hold heat and preach non-violence. He about to start the speech, come on, silence.
We're going to see this even more in some of the later tracks on Madvillainy, but it's honestly incredible how Madlib was able to take reference songs from so many different styles and cultures of music and craft them all into such a cohesive sounding record. To the point where I think the production on Madvillainy alone puts him up there as one of the greatest producers of all time. But enough glazing, our final sample here comes in the form of that weird voice that repeats the word game about a minute in, which originates from the fittingly titled George Clinton track Computer Games, released in 1982. With how strong all 3 of these samples are, I'd say Raid is the best batch we've seen in this video so far, so let's see if Potholderz can compete. Starting with its main instrumental, which is from the 1973 Billy Butler track 400 Girls Ago. Crazy title.
These old things, about to throw them away, with the gold rings that make them don't fit like OJ.
This is then followed by, surprisingly enough for me at least, a sample from Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg's Still Dre.
It ain't nothing but mo hot shit. Another classic CD for y'all to vibe with.
And I say surprising since I never made that connection myself, but upon learning about it, the vocal chop becomes so clear in the production. And speaking of vocal chops, we've got another that loops along with the Dre chop from Big Daddy Kane's Ain't No Half Steppin'.
Table I sit, making it legit, and when my pen hits the paper, aw shit, I stop shit, aw shit.
I mean, it would only make sense for 2 classic hip-hop tracks to be sampled right next to each other like this, right? Anyways, up next is another interpolation from the same EPMD track that had the Hoe Cakes interpolation.
Fly, haircut like Anita Baker.
Looked up and down, said, I'll take a.
Looked up and down, said, too much makeup. Poor music taste, 10 years from being.
What's interesting though is that this time, the interpolation comes instead from the featured artist on Potholderz, Count Bass D, so it's entirely possible that this repeat is just a pure coincidence. Now though, we end with yet another sample that'll make a lot of appearances on Food, with the very end of the track sampling a scene from the new Fantastic Four, Season 1, Episode 8, The Fantastic Four Meet Dr. Doom.
A short time later, at the fabled headquarters of the world-famous Fantastic Four. A short time later.
You know what? I'm about to say something that's gonna make me look really dumb to any Marvel fans out there. I legit had no idea that Spider-Man and the Fantastic Four were part of the same universe until making this video. I literally thought Fantastic Four was DC up until a few weeks ago. Please spare me. This is unfortunately not close at all in my opinion. Potholderz is definitely on the weaker side of Food sample-wise, and Raid is probably top 5 sample-wise on Madvillainy, so the winner's pretty obvious. And now, ladies, gentlemen, or otherwise, we get to the round that I've been dreading to cover this entire time, and quite possibly the largest round this series will ever see. We've got America's Most Blunted versus One Beer. Now for reference, the last sample breakdown I did on GNX had 13 total samples. This matchup, this godforsaken matchup, has an absolutely monstrous 30 samples to go over. One Beer has 10 of them, and America's Most Blunted absolutely shatters the record for most samples present in a single song that I've covered in this series so far, with 20. So of course, I'll try to cover all of these as fast as I can, since I don't want us to be stuck on this segment for the next 10 minutes. Starting with America's Most Blunted, of course, number 1, main instrumental, comes from the 1968 Fever Tree track 99 1/2.
Never will he boost loose Phillies with the barcode, or take a whole carload on a wasted trip.
Number 2, a sound effect in the very beginning of the song from the 1971 track In the Rain by the Dramatics. Number 3, another sound effect 2 seconds later from Sun Ra's 1969 song Atlantis. Number 4, 3 seconds after that, the phrase "come out and show them" from Steve Reich's 1967 track Come Out.
I had to open the bruise up and let some of the bruise blood come out to show them. Then come out to show them.
Number 5, an excerpt from the 1971 track Listening to Music by Jack Margolis.
Music.
And this one we'll actually talk about a little bit more in depth. You'll see why in a second. Basically, the song Listening to Music is off of the album A Child's Garden of Grass, which is a comedy record centered around the theme of, you might have guessed, cannabis, ganja, 420, pot, Mary Jane, grass, chronic, the green stuff. And continuing the weed theme, number 6, looping vocal sample from the track Blunted by Phil de Agony.
Planet, y'all niggas don't want it, you get confronted. Hey yo, America's most wanted. America's most blunted.
Lucky number 7, we're not even halfway done by the way, another vocal chop from Edo G's 2000 track Sayin' Something.
Hard, ill and get your bandit bored. Soon as you start sleeping, catching you off guard. Soon as you start sleeping, catching you off guard.
Crazy 8, 1 second later again, yet another vocal sample from the 1999 track The Light by Pharaoh Monk.
Funny how things change when you got a little liquor in you. You're quicker with the tongue, giving me rhythm now. Block the music and the people out.
Soon as you start sleeping, catching you off guard. Be rhythm now,
Number 9, 1 second later again. We actually get a little switch up. It's another vocal sample, but surprisingly enough from a track licensed by Disney titled Acting Out the ABCs.
What are we going to do if you'll all gather close around the phonograph?
Rhythm now,
If you'll all gather close around the phonograph.
Very Madvillain moment to sample both a Disney song and a comedy album about smoking the fat doinks on the same track. But on to number 10, we're halfway there now, shout out Bon Jovi. We take it back to hip hop with a sample from Redman's Let's Get Dirty, I Can Get Into Club. Number 11, shout out Stranger Things, another rap track, we have Keep It Thorough by Prodigy.
Oh, catch you coming out your crib.
Number 12, shout out the Police Force. We've got some fun beatbox samples again, this time from the 1984 Fat Boys track Human Beatbox.
It can help you with your rhyme flow and your beatbox. Off spike to your.
And for those who remember, Fat Boys were also sampled in Lean Beef Patty by JPEG Mafia and Danny Brown. Unlucky number 13, even more hip hop with a sample from the 1993 Posse Cut Spontaneous 13 MCs Deep.
Ruffling, chillin', skinning, amazing loops, lyrical hoops.
Number 14, a track also by leaders of the new school, this time the song Classic Material. Number 15, we've got vocal sample number I've lost count from the 1997 track Ice Down Medallions by Royal Flush.
World flush and hit ya, dominate scripture, wild black emperor, the best in your perimeter. The best in your perimeter.
Number 16, shout out Square Numbers, I guess. We get an interpolation from a song by Madlib himself under his rapping stage name Quasimodo on the track Astro Travelin'.
I always keep my wings on deck, smoking law.
Yo, anyway, every day, yo, I spark the law. I spark the law.
But don't with speed, the trees will see.
Number 17, shout out Drake. We take it back to vocal samples, this time a barely audible one from the 1969 Melvin Van Peebles track You Can Get Up Before Noon Without Being a Square.
I done tried to tell you, the world ain't all that new.
The trees will see. Quasimodo crew.
We get killed. The most blooded on the map.
Number 18, final 3 time baby, another interpolation from Quasimodo, though this time with legendary producer Jay Dilla on the track React.
Low misses when I try to react. when you try to react.
But finally, we reach the end of this mammoth undertaking with the final two samples on America's Most Blunted, both from Jack Margolis' Weed album again. First from the track Creativity.
Creativity. Creativity.
And second from the track Physical Effects.
So remember...
M-A-R-I-J-U? A-J-U-A-N-A.
Goddamn, that was quite a lot of samples to get through. Roughly 10% of the samples in this video, actually. And we still have to go over one beer. Although thankfully, a majority of its samples are either repeats or just way more interesting to talk about. First up, of course, is probably the second most famous MF Doom sample of all time behind You Know What. We have the track 8 Octobre 1971 by Cortex.
Rappers screaming all in our ears like we're deaf. Tempt me, do a number on a label.
I will never forget the moment I first discovered that the intro of One Beer and the main beat are made up from the exact same song. It's simply amazing. And an extremely influential sample as well, also being flipped in songs from the likes of Tyler the Creator to Wiz Khalifa to Babytron. Next up though, we have in tandem with the previous iconic sample flip, an iconic interpolation by Doom in the track's intro of the song I Get a Kick Out of You by Ethel Merman.
I get no kick from champagne.
I get no kick from champagne.
Doom is maybe the only artist on this planet that can sing this terribly on the intro of a song and have me still love it. It is such a hilarious way to start the track. But moving on to sample number 3, we get a second interpolation from the fucking Teletubbies of all places.
Time for Teletubbies. Time for Teletubbies. Time for Teletubbies.
Seeds know what time it is, like it's time for Teletubbies.
And this is followed by a third interpolation, this time from Yellow Man's 1983 track Nobody Move, Nobody Get Hurt.
Nobody move, nobody get hurt. The youth them just a dress up in a white collar shirt.
The mic is the shotty, nobody move, nobody get hurt. Bring heat like the boy done gone.
And we also get a repeat of the Doom sound effect present on Hoe Cakes.
There, it is done.
Now getting to the track's outro, where the bulk of the samples are located, we first have drums from the 1975 Brian Ferry song You Go to My Head.
Now you keep your eyes open. When I tell you, start...
Then a time from the Spider-Man cartoon yet again, though this time from Season 1, Episode 2, Dr. Doom, Master of the World.
Ladies and gentlemen,
I
am...
Next, another repeat sample from the Late Show end credits, previously sampled on Beef Rap.
No thanks. And what about a smoke? Nice cigar.
And what about smoke?
Followed by another repeat from the new Fantastic Four show, although this sample is one of the few in this video that I can actually play. Yeah, sadly enough, there were a few samples that I wasn't able to locate or were just blocked due to copyright, so with all following examples, I'm just gonna skim right through them, but won't play any actual clips. Sorry. And this actually includes the next and final sample on One Beer, also from the new Fantastic Four, this time from the show's pilot episode, A Monster Among Us. But with that, we have finally covered all 30 samples in this round. So which of these two sample juggernauts wins? Well, I mean, it's One Beer, easily. The Cortex sample alone clears anything on America's Most Blunted, even if it is inherently pretty impressive to tastefully sample 20 separate things on one track. But look at this, perfect timing to take a little breather and cover Sickfit in a bonus round. And even better, it only has one sample, coming from the 1972 track by the Generation Gap, Family Affair. Kind of a shame this beat doesn't feature any rapping from Doom on it, since I think on its own it's definitely in the top half of instrumentals on Madvillainy for me, but what can you do, right? Back to the actual rounds though, we now have a match between Rainbows and Deep Fried Frenz. And Rainbows has 4 samples compared to Deep Fried Frenz' 6, so it should be a decently sized round again, thank God. Beginning with Rainbows, we have the main instrumental coming from the 1968 track Kelly by William Luce, Stu Phillips, and Marvin Elling. We also have a small vocal chop about 2 seconds in from the 1971 James Brown track Blues and Pants. next up, we actually skip all the way to the track's outro with a sample from the 1996 track Psycho Brahim by Paul Saltel and Bert Schefter. Hard to say, sorry. And lastly, another clip from that documentary History of the Cold Villains thing to close us out.
Darth Vader. This villain was a ruthless, masked conqueror with aspirations to dominate the universe. This villain was a ruthless, masked conqueror with aspirations to dominate the universe.
Now, I don't know if it's just because Rainbows is probably my least favorite track on Madvillainy, even with its pretty funny concept, but I overall find the samples to be uncharacteristically weak for Madlib standards. To be fair though, this track is only a slight blemish in what's otherwise a near flawless sample pool. That being said though, Deep Fried Frenz starts off extremely strong with a sick chop of the 1984 Houdini track Frenz in the song's outro.
Friends, before we go any further, let's be before we go any further. Friends. As you call them, they call you in.
And this sample is paired excellently with the song's main instrumental coming from the 1977 Ronnie Laws track Friends and Strangers.
I found a way to get peace of mind for years and left the hell alone. Turn a deaf ear to the cellular phone.
The rest of the samples are all in the track's outro, but these two back-to-back are such a strong combo. I absolutely love the funky sound of the latter. Moving on though, we have a vocal sample from the 1970 movie Watermelon Man.
Villainous, don't be silly. I know who my friends are. Villainous, don't be silly. I know who my friends are.
And another nice little connection, Watermelon Man was directed by Melvin Van Peebles, who was previously sampled on America's Most Blunted. It's fun, isn't it? Now next we have a sample from the 1976 track by Latin jazz band Caldera titled Out of the Blue.
The awesome armor-clad Lord of...
I know who Doom is.
Then tell us.
He happens to be...
And after that, a repeat of the Fantastic Four sample I can't play, and finally followed by the Spider-Man sample previously sampled like 3 times by now.
What have I done to myself? My face! What have I done to myself? My face! It is...
This is a pretty easy win for Food, I think. Again, Rainbows is pretty weak, and Deep Fried Frenz is very, very strong. On to round 6 now, and we have Curls vs Poo-Putt Platter, with Poo-Putt Platter being the first track in Food's mini instrumental medley. And Curls is actually another track with only a single sample, coming from the 1970 Waldir Kallman track Airport Love Theme.
Villain get the money like curls, they just trying to get a nut like squirrels in his mad world.
Another really damn strong one. Doom's more serious verse talking about topics like religion and his early upbringing are a perfect fit on top of the simultaneously charming and kinda creepy instrumental. Let's see if it can compare to the 8 samples across Poo-Putt Platter though. First up, the first beat of the song is sampled from the 1977 Fat Albert Halloween special, which is simply hilarious to me.
Late night snack, and also a dandy fly swatter.
Next up, another sample from the Electric Company show, seen before on Beef Rap, of course. This time, though, it's from a segment featuring the actor Skip Hinnant, in which he parodies a famous health food advocate by the name of Yul Gibbons.
Well, you may say, I don't think I'd care for that, so I tripped a lot out here in the woods lately. This is...
And I'll say, the skit in full is actually pretty funny. I'd highly suggest you give it a full watch after finishing this video. Or honestly, you might not even have to, considering just how many times it's gonna reappear with these next few tracks. Next up though, we have a sample from Season 1, Episode 14 of Scooby-Doo Where Are You?, which is another I can't play unfortunately. Followed by Sample 4, a vocal chop from the 1973 movie Hell Up in Harlem, another blaxploitation film.
Now you got black eyed peas, turnip greens,
chitlins,
collard greens, pig feet.
But they've never strayed from the valley since we made the
pig feet.
Yes, that is what disturbs me.
And kinda anticlimactic way to end this, but samples 5 through 8 are all from the Hanna-Barbera cartoon The Herculoids, none of which I can play due to copyright. But they come from Season 1, Episode 37, The Invisibles, Season 1, Episode 39, Space Trappers, and Season 1, Episode 44, Energy Creature, respectively. This round is weirdly kinda tough since I am really a big fan of the Electric Company skit, but I do think that the Curl sample is more sonically interesting, so I think I am gonna go with Madvillainy here. Alright, and now it's time for bonus round number 4 with Do Not Fire, with 9 samples to break down. And despite being just an instrumental, it's got some of the coolest sample finds out of any track in this video. Fair warning though, I'm going to absolutely butcher the pronunciations of most of these, so you've been warned. First off, a sample in the intro from the track Hurab Disa Se Pardesi Aya off of the soundtrack album to the movie Suraj Aur Chanda. Also, I'm gonna try to do my best with the translations here. I believe the track title translates to A Foreigner Came from Purba Disa, and the movie is titled Sun and Moon. Taking it back to the States next up though, we have a Michael Jackson sample actually, though it's just a small vocal excerpt from a track on the special edition of Thriller, titled Voiceover Session from Thriller.
Can you dig it?
And now we take it back to the East, actually, with the sound effect from Japan's classic video game series Street Fighter, specifically in the sequel Street Fighter 2.
Round 2, fight! Yo, that's fire!
But now back to India, we get another sample from a Bollywood film in the track Mithi Mithi Ankion Se Dil Bar De, which means fill your heart with sweet eyes. And it comes from the movie Mahakor or High Thief. Oh wait, we're going back to Japan again with another Street Fighter sound effect. This time coming from Super Street Fighter 2, The New Challengers. And who would have guessed now, we're back in India with 2 more samples from the movie Adhikar, which translates to right. The first being the track by Mana Day, Fashion Ki Diwani or Fashion Addict. And the second by Kishore Kumar and Asha Bose, titled Koi Man Ya Na Man or Accept the Call or Not. Funnily enough, however, smack in between those two, there's a sample from the 1976 track Slack-Jawed Leroy, which comes from the sex comedy duo Skillet and Leroy off of their album Backdoor Daddy. Of course made in the good old US of A, baby.
Get off them clothes, motherfucker. Let me see what you got.
Yeah, it is, honey.
Finally though, we get another sample from Melvin Van Peebles, this time from his track Sarah Sarah Jim.
Love, love, love. On the idiot box, in the headlines. On the idiot box, in the headlines.
Not to get too deep or whatever, but I truly think that one of my favorite parts of making these sample videos is getting to discover so many cool songs from cultures whose music I would most likely never manage to find otherwise. Like, we went from the US to India to Japan just in this track samples alone, and that's not even to mention all the other countries we've seen get some really cool sample representation so far. I just think that's really cool personally, and it makes Do Not Fire, unironically, a major highlight in this sample breakdown for me, even with it just being an instrumental. And in a pretty fitting moment, I think, that last Melvin Van Peebles sample is actually sample number 100 in this video. Pretty hype. But anyways, we are still nowhere near done, so let's move on to the next round between Moneyfolder and Fillet-O-Rapper. Beginning with Moneyfolder, we've got a drum sample from the 2001 track Going Down by Babatunde Leia.
Panic, can't understand it, ban it. The underhanded ran it, planned it, and left him stranded.
And this is followed by what's probably the weirdest technical interpolation in this series so far, with Doom's opening line being a reference to the verse John 8:7 from the Bible.
He straightened up and said to them, "He who is without sin among you, let him be the first to throw a stone at her."
Let he who is without sin cast the first stone after you, whose last is doomed.
So I guess we again break the record for oldest piece of media sampled in this series so far, which is pretty funny. Give it a few more months and we're going to be going over some artists interpolating writings from ancient Egyptian papyrus or something like that. Taking it back to the modern age though, we have an interpolation from Soul Turnaround by Freddie Hubbard, although fair warning, this one's very hard to hear. If you want though, you can get a better listen of it through the demo version of the track, which I'll link up in the top right corner. Anyways, up next is the interpolation which gives the track its name, being from the 1987 track South Bronx by Boogie Down Productions.
KRS-One is the holder of a boulder, money folder.
MF, the holder of a boulder, money folder.
And as for our final two samples, we have another appearance of the Spider-Man cartoon.
I, Dr. Doom, shall be voted master of the world.
Bald-headed Doom. This villain rose to incredible...
Followed by a vocal sample from a trailer from the 1963 movie adaptation of Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven.
This is no answer. This is no answer.
Very well then.
Goldfinger featured a muscle-bound karate expert named Oddjob, as played by Harold Sakata. The muscle-bound karate expert concealed a razor edge which could lop...
Also, while we're talking about The Raven, did you guys know that Edgar Allan Poe married his 13-year-old cousin when he was 27? Drake moment? Okay. No more Drake jokes, bar is way too low at this point. Kinda like Drake's preferred age range. Sorry. On to Fillet-O-Rapper, probably my favorite title track on Food. We start with a sample from the 1974 Hubert Laws track Mean Lean. Terrifying album cover, by the way, holy shit. We also get another sample from both the Hell Up in Harlem movie.
Now that's what they call soul food. Now that's what they call soul food.
As well as the Electric Company Yule Gibbons spoof.
You see the st up there? Shows you how good it is. Shows you how good it is.
Another pretty easy round for me. I'm going with Money Folder here. It is unfortunate for Food in this segment of the video, since right now its instrumental skits are going up against some of Madvillainy's best tracks, but this is the best way I could set the rounds up. Now next up, we have Shadows of Tomorrow versus Gumbo, with 4 samples to 3. Starting with a very strange sample in the intro from the 1977 track, 谁砍倒了樱桃树? Which translates to Who Cut Down the Cherry Tree. 谁砍倒了樱桃树?
Today is the shadow of tomorrow.
And this is another one where I'm just like, how the hell did Madlib find this? And why does that descending synth line in this kid song go so hard? Next up, we take it back to the Maha Core soundtrack with a sample from the song Hindu Hoon Main Na Musalman Hoon, or I Am Not a Hindu Nor a Muslim.
Today belongs to the dead, because the dead belongs to the past. The past is yesterday. Today is...
We then have a sample of the drums on the track Dead by Carolyn Sullivan. And finally, a vocal sample from the 1974 Afrofuturist science fiction film Space is the Place.
Would affect their vibrations. For the better, of course. Affect their vibrations.
Little background info on this movie. It stars and was written by Sun Ra, previously sampled on Madvillainy, who is a jazz musician most well known for being the pioneer of the aforementioned Afrofuturism genre. And basically, Afrofuturism is an aesthetic that merges African culture with science fiction. So yes, Sun Ra did technically directly inspire acts like Beyonce and Lil Nas X, which I think is pretty sweet. Moving on to Gumbo though, it's going to be a fairly quick one since all 3 of its samples are ones we've already gone over. We have a repeat of Frank Zappa's Would You Like a Snack?
The raps where there was no food associated with the use of the rap, so some potential uses.
A repeat of the Electric Company Yule Gibbons spoof.
Stick Gumbo. You gotta watch your gums on this, but it's very good. It's very healthy. You gotta watch your gums on this, but it's very good. It's very healthy.
And a repeat of the Hell Up in Harlem movie.
Now you got black eyed peas, turnip greens,
chitlins,
and eat more
chitlins.
And again, this is another round that's easy as pie. See what I did there? It's gonna go to Shadows of Tomorrow. Fortunately though, we get back to a relatively large round of 7 samples apiece both on Operation Lifesaver aka Mintest and Fig Leaf Bi-Carbonate. Operation Lifesaver's gotta be the funniest song on Madvillainy concept-wise, and its samples perfectly play into it, starting with the super smooth chop that makes up the instrumental from the track Prepare Yourself by George Duke.
It's in her own best interests. Less stress. Hit her with the do you need a mid test.
This is then followed up with 4 samples all coming from the soundtrack album Songs and Stories About the Justice League of America. The first being from the track Metamorpho Fumo the Fire Giant.
Oh, what's happening? What have you done?
One of the most powerful forces man has ever seen. Faith from the depths of the earth.
The second from the track The Theme of the Justice League of America.
Operation Lifesaver is in effect as of right now. Operation Lifesaver is in effect as of right now.
The third from the track Plastic Man, The Invasion of the Plastic Men.
Wow. Now what? Contact the guard and let him know to slip to him. Fine. And how are you doing?
And the fourth from the track Aquaman, Defeat of the Dehydrator.
He's right. We're moving up. No, we've stopped. We're going down.
The whole world's watching and counting.
No,
and all you people listening out there.
This is what I meant by the samples playing well into the concept, by the way. I just love how Doom is able to reframe the dramatic Operation Lifesaver vocal samples into a goofy story about a woman with bad breath. We do still have 2 more samples to check out in the song's outro, though. First from the 1966 track, The Decoys of Ming the Merciless, off of another soundtrack album, I believe, titled The Official Adventures of Flash Gordon.
The official adventures of Flash Gordon. The official adventures of...
And we end with a chop from the 1971 reggae track Double Barrel.
And the Magnificent. I'm back, but the shaker was so...
Adventures of...
The Magnificent. The Magnificent.
Moving on to Fig Leaf Bi-Carbonate now, we start with a Spider-Man sample that I can't actually play. Not to be confused with the previous Spider-Man samples, this one is from a different Spider-Man cartoon, which is also called Spider-Man. We then have a shaker sample from the 1969 Les Baxter track Hot Wind off of the soundtrack to the film Hell's Bells. Next up is a pretty cool one. We have a sample from Stevie Wonder's 1973 performance on Sesame Street.
Wow!
Followed up with the Yule Gibbons spoof again.
Well, I think that about covers all of the natural foods out here that have the... thank you. Well, I think that about covers all of the natural foods out here.
But as for our final 2 samples in this round, we've got a repeat of the Caldera track sampled on Deep Fried Frenz.
One look was enough to ensure his safety. As years...
And a Fantastic Four episode that is once again copyrighted. Damn. Madvillainy's been on a pretty crazy streak these last few rounds, and it's still not stopping in this one, since I'm going with Operation Lifesaver pretty handedly. And now finally, we get to another really strong matchup with Figaro vs Kon Karne. Only 5 samples to 3 here, but you'll soon see how well both of these tracks stack up. First up, of course, Figaro, already coming out of the gate swinging with the nastiest organ lick in the intro, coming from the 1967 Lonnie Smith track Giannine. This might honestly be my favorite sample across all of Madvillainy. I swear, every time I play this track, the intro just got me going like... And then as we get to the main instrumental, we actually get another Lonnie Smith sample, this time from his track In the Beginning.
For fake, if he was Anita Baker's man, he'd take her for her masters, hit it once and shake her hand.
And over this beat, you have a top-tier verse from Doom with 3 interpolations to check out. First, we have a line borrowed from Eric B. and Rakim's 1990 track Let the Rhythm Hit Him.
Let the rhythm hit him. Let the rhythm hit him. It's stronger in the other voice we makes the joint.
Followed up with a direct interpolation of Patty Cake with this line. How is this the second video in a row where a traditional folk song has been interpolated?
Patty cake, baker's man.
Daddy, the flow make her fatty shake. Patty cake, for fake.
Finally, of course, we have the titular interpolation of The Marriage of Figaro, composed by Wolfgang Mozart all the way back in 1786. Although disclaimer, the clip I'm about to play is technically from Gioacchio Rossini's 1816 performance of the piece since it actually features vocals.
Figaro, 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 Figaro,
Figaro, Figaro. Old beats in my rhymes attack.
And look, I know this series isn't about lyrics, but I just have to shout out the line, "A scary act, all black like Miss Mary Mac." One of the coldest bars I've ever heard. But even with how strong of a sample roster Figaro boasts, Kon Karne is not going out without a fight. We start with a simply elegant flip of Sade's 1985 track, "Is It a Crime?"
Darker than the East River, larger than the Empire State, with the beast who guard the barbed wire.
And I'll be honest with this one, I am insanely biased since I recently just listened to the Love Deluxe album, and goddamn, that shit was smooth as butter. But with the Sade sample, we get a super strange pairing with this like laser pointer sounding drum loop from the 1986 Just Ice track, La Toya.
Alright, party people in a place to be. Mental at a higher rate. Why debate the liars, flyers scatter by a plate, isolate.
This, by the way, also gives us another connection to JPEG Mafia, since his track OG samples another Just Ice track off of the same album. To close it out though, we get yet another repeat of the Spider-Man sample in the track's outro, as you could have probably guessed by now.
Please, in my pocket, a note. In my pocket, a note.
But goddamn, this one is way closer than I would have originally thought. I think I am still gonna go with Figaro since it's probably my favorite track on Madvillainy, both in general and sample-wise. But I honestly think Kon Karne would have beat almost all of the last few Madvillainy tracks we've gone over. It just happened to go up against an absolute beast. Round 11 now takes us to Hardcore Hustle versus Guinnessez, with a score currently 7-3 in favor of Madvillainy. So let's see if Food is able to catch up. I'll see myself out. Hardcore Hustle starts off with a pretty sick flip of the 1969 track Sing a Simple Song by Diana Ross, The Supremes, and The Temptations.
Jump on the track with the hardcore hustle. With the busload of niggas, this time we brought y'all muscle.
But unfortunately ends off kinda weak with two samples from the 1978 sound effects library, More Death and Horror. First, a sound titled Sweeney Todd the Barber, referencing the main character from the 1846 story The String of Pearls. And second, a more traditionally titled track called Premature Burial. Moving into Guinnessez now, despite it featuring no vocals from Doom himself, it has a pretty stacked sample list. Starting with the main instrumental, which flips the 1977 Phase O track, True Love.
Stress, frustration, empty rhetoric, cold as winter in Connecticut, compassion lacking deficit.
That guitar lick that pops in and out of the beat is just so smooth. And this is combined with the simple but clean drum sample from the track Louisiana Blues by the Climax Blues Band.
Time never came so ill, he got skill, met a brother from the grill that gave.
Now getting into the smaller samples, stop me if you've heard this one before, another Spider-Man sample.
Look, I need to sing.
Oh boy, here we go.
As well as another Electric Company sample.
Wait, what's that villain doing? What's that villain doing? Wait.
And then we get a Scooby-Doo sample that I actually can play for you guys. From Season 2, Episode 4, Jeepers, It's the Creeper.
There's the creeper. Will I'll be. Will I'll be.
Why this clip isn't copyrighted but the other clips are, I don't know, but I'll take it. Following this though, we get back to Marvel with a sample from a reading of the comic titled The Adventures of the Fantastic Four as part of the Marvel Comics radio series back in 1975.
They are devices that he uses to spy on our every movement.
Wait, Princess, your voice sounds familiar.
Oh, it should.
Wait, Princess, your voice sounds familiar.
Oh, it should. You see, I don't want...
And the final two samples, we get an excerpt from the 1961 drama film A Raisin in the Sun.
How come all you college boys wear them faggoty-looking white shoes?
Waterley!
How come all you college boys wear them faggoty-looking white shoes?
Along with a scene in Season 7, Episode 44 of Sesame Street, in which Ernie forgets to turn off the water. Classic Bert and Ernie shenanigans.
You didn't wash your neck. Sometimes we don't wash our necks
but that's okay.
I washed my neck, Bert. Take a look at my neck.
You didn't wash your neck. Sometimes we don't wash our necks.
Now this might be a bit of an upset, but I think I'm gonna go with Guinnessez here. When it comes to the strongest samples on these two tracks, I think I do prefer the Phaso flip, which means Food is back in the game, baby. Let's see if it can keep up the momentum with Strange Ways vs Kon Queso. This round we've got 2 samples to 3 in favor of Food, but Madvillainy comes through again with another really strong start. It features a very cool chop of the 1970 Gentle Giant song Funny Ways.
Wreak havoc, beat beatless, mad traffic, sleek and lavish, people speaking, leaking to the maverick.
But I hate to say it, once again we ended a kinda lackluster fashion with a vocal sample from the 1951 cartoon short Symphony in Slang that I can't play. Abolish all copyright. Time for Kon Queso's turn now, and it similarly starts very well, with a flip of the 1983 track Newscast 1 by Christian Chevalier and John Tender.
Give it a sec for the pain to start. This wreck right here, it ain't for the faint of heart.
I absolutely love that intro especially. It sounds like when you boot up a Sega Genesis or something. We also get another Fantastic Four sample, though this time from a different version of the series, in Season 1, Episode 9 of the 3 predictions of Dr. Doom.
It's Dr. Doom! His image is on the television screen!
Schedule my noon with Brit Hume.
Doom!
In love with Mary Jane, she's my main.
And of course, we end off with, say it with me now, another Spider-Man sample. It's like clockwork at this point.
That's what could happen if a major earthquake were to hit New York City. Of course, there aren't any major earthquake faults around here.
We must hurry. Wait. If you are really with us, prove it. Let me hear you say.
As for who takes the round, however, it's definitely a close one, but I think I ever so slightly prefer Kon Queso's main sample. Strange Ways is definitely a great one, though. But now, ladies, gentlemen, or otherwise, we get to the round that, let's be honest, most of you were waiting for. We've got Fancy Clown going up against the myth, the legend, the one song that everyone uses to pretend they're a real MF Doom fan, the one and only Rapp Snitch Knishes. And I know, you're probably waiting on bated breath for me to talk about its sample, but we've got to go over Fancy Clown first, alright? Them's the rules. Thankfully though, Fancy Clown came here to fight, immediately coming out of the gate swinging with a masterful sample chop of the 1975 ZZ Hill track, That Ain't the Way You Make Love.
Break it up, then make it up. When will you get enough?
I knew you was in around, playing all innocent horns since the foundation.
That chop is just so well executed, and hearing Doom's alter ego Victor Vaughn chew out a woman who cheated on him with Doom is just so fun. That's not all though. We also get a small excerpt from the 1972 Love Unlimited track Walkin' in the Rain with the One I Love.
See you tomorrow. See you in the morning. Telling your brothers, they say you're gone.
As well as a sample from the track Channel 85 Sign On by yet another comedy duo, Philip Proctor and Peter Bergman.
And now, subscriber, we've got to punch you up. So please stand by. Now, subscriber, we've got to punch you up. So please stand by.
An extremely strong showing from Fancy Clown, like I said, but I mean, come on. It's going against Rapp Snitch Knishes, which of course famously samples the 1977 David Matthews cover of David Bowie's Space Oddity.
Rap snitches, telling all their business, sit in the court and be their own star witness. Do you see the purpose?
You know, for how iconic of a sample flip this is, I find it amazing that even after all of these years, I still haven't become the slightest bit jaded towards it. Which I think shows better than anything how truly perfect the sample is. But would you be surprised if I told you that wasn't actually the only sample on the song? We actually have another interpolation from EPMD from their track Rampage.
Ripper, the master, the overlordian, playing MCs like an old accordion.
True to the ski mask, New York's my origin. Play a fake gangster like an old accordion.
But I mean, yeah, what do you want me to say? Fancy Clown is incredible, but Rapp Snitch Knishes has what I would consider to be a flawless sample chop. So as expected, Food is gonna get the win. We're now moving on to the final 4 rounds of this versus, starting with I versus Vomitspit, and it's another pretty small round with 1 sample to 3. As for I's lone sample, it comes from the 1984 track by The Whispers titled So Good. And can I just say, most underrated track on Madvillainy by a mile. I know Doom doesn't rap on the song, but the performance from Stacey Epps is gorgeous, and I absolutely love how ghostly and ethereal the sample's made to sound with the effects placed on it. Super cool stuff. But Vomitspit is, truthfully, gonna be a tough one to top, starting with its main sample from the 1970 Mashma Khan song Happy You Should Be.
You'd rather eat a sandwich salad. It might need salt like your man's bland ballad.
Followed by 2 more repeats, firstly of the drums on You Go To My Head by Brian Ferry.
A lot of stuff happens that the news won't tell yous. Blues on L juice, snooze all hell loose.
And second, the Fantastic Four cartoon yet again.
The ultimate triumph shall belong to Dr. Doom.
It's the beat. You hear it in his sleep sometimes, blare it in your Jeep.
Now, this may be crazy, but I think I am gonna go with Vomitspit on this one. Like I said, I do really love the sample flip on I, but I think the Mashma Khan flip is just a lot cooler and more unique. And with that, Food has pulled off the comeback of the century, tying the score 7-7. Perfect timing for our final bonus round of the verses with Supervillain theme, while you guys are on the edge of your seat waiting to see which album wins. Don't worry though, it'll be quick, it's only got 2 samples. First from the 1972 track by Brazilian prog rock band O Terco titled Adormeceu, which translates to Fall Asleep. Followed up with another sample from Just Ice at the very beginning of the track off of his song Cold Gettin' Dumb.
Cold Gettin' Dumb. Yeah. Cold Gettin' Dumb.
Ultimately, just another great example of Madlib's ability to pull together a super cool foreign sample to flip. But back to the actual verses now. As for our anti-penultimate round, which by the way means third to last round, we've got all Caps versus Kookies. And this is once again a very strong round from both sides here. I mean, All Caps starts us off with another of the most famous samples across Madvillainy, behind Accordion, coming from the opening credits of Season 2, Episode 11 of the crime drama Ironside.
So nasty that it's probably somewhat of a travesty having me. Then he told the people you can call me your majesty.
And honestly, knowing this sample's origins only makes it even cooler to me. We've also got a drum sample from the 1974 track Bumpin' Bus Stop by Thunder and Lightning.
Step up front, you dig? Get down with the bus stop.
Followed by an interpolation of the line Sometimes He Rhyme Quick, Sometimes He Rhyme Slow from the 1991 track by Nice and Smooth titled Sometimes I Rhyme Slow.
Sometimes I rhyme slow, sometimes I rhyme quick. Sometimes he rhyme quick, sometimes he rhyme slow, or vice versa.
And finally, a sample in the outro from Season 3, Episode 20 of another crime drama, The Streets of San Francisco, titled River of Fear. Also, before we move on, just gotta get one of these out of the way. Don't talk about my moms, yo. Disclaimer with Kookies, by the way, we're going to be checking out the original version of the song since the streaming service's cut is missing a few samples due to clearance issues. First up, a sample from the 1971 Sesame Street theme song by Joe Raposo, Jim Henson, and Bruce Hart.
Inside them, they got them with their curls out, and they got a better sales pitch than the Girl Scouts.
Absolute travesty that the streaming version of Kookies lacks this sample. It truly makes the song for me. That's not to say that it doesn't have other cool samples, though. Case in point, the drum loop from the 1986 Stetsasonic track Go Stetsa 1. And to close out the standard edition of Food, I see no other way than with 3 more repeats. Firstly, another scene from that Stevie Wonder episode of Sesame Street.
Cookies!
Ass-naked females.
Cookies!
I don't know no Jenny. She said it's free.
Second, our final repeat of the Spider-Man cartoon.
Dr. Doom is master of the world.
Doom is master of the world.
And last but not least, our final repeat of the Fantastic Four cartoon.
Hey, you know something, gang? That Doc Doom ain't really all bad. You know something, gang? That Doom ain't really all bad.
You know what? I don't think this round is as close as I originally considered it to be, especially given the best sample on Kookies isn't even on the streaming service version. I'm gonna go handedly with all caps here, which means it's now match point in favor of Madvillainy. So let's see if Food is able to clutch up the win in these final 2 rounds with its classic remixes. Our penultimate round is going to be between Great Day and the Madlib remix of One Beer, with 4 samples to 2. Starting with Great Day, its intro comes from that same Streets of San Francisco episode sampled in all caps. We then have its main instrumental courtesy of a 1968 Ivets Redno track, How Can You Believe? And if you've never heard of Ivets Redno before, I'll give you a little hint. Spell it out backwards. After this one though, we get, funnily enough, a sung interpolation by MF Doom of the 1986 track Love You Down by the R&B group Ready for the World.
It never really mattered too much to me. It never really mattered too much to me.
Finally, we end with another interpolation, this time with the famous catchphrase of the Brain in the cartoon Pinky and the Brain.
Are you pondering what I'm pondering, Pinky?
Sure, Brain, but how are we gonna find chaps our size?
Doom, are you pondering what I'm pondering? Yes, but why would the darn thing...
Now, even though Great Day isn't the strongest track we've gone over sample-wise, nowhere near, you may be thinking it's kinda unfair to have it go against a remix of all things. But need I remind you, this isn't any old ordinary remix. This is a Madlib remix, and this video hopefully serves as more than enough proof that he is one of the best producers of all time. So on to the samples, we start off with the first instrumental on the track, being built from the 1969 song by Bernard Weiss-Straight, Daydream.
I get no kick from champagne.
The creeping instrumental line that just explodes into those horns is chopped masterfully. Excellent work overall. But what's even crazier is that the second instrumental features maybe an even cooler chop, from the 1985 track Transformation by the hip-hop duo Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Looser than a pair of Adidas. Homie, what your spare tweeters? MCs sound like cheerleaders, rapping and dancing like...
You want to hear the nuttiest part though? The original One Beer was already produced by Madlib. He didn't even need to make a remix of his own beat, but he did, and he absolutely cooked. I don't care. The One Beer remix is taking this round for me, easily. And yes, that makes it tied 8-8 going into our final round of the verses. After nearly 200 samples across these 2 records, it all comes down to this final matchup between Madvillainy's closer, Rhinestone Cowboy, and the Jake 1 remix of Hoe Cakes. And it already seems like Rhinestone Cowboy has the advantage with 4 samples to 1, but need I remind you, all it takes is 1 crazy sample flip to beat 4 average ones. Starting, of course, with Rhinestone Cowboy, we first have its main instrumental, which is a flip of the 1971 track by Brazilian singer-songwriter Maria Bethânia titled Mariana Mariana.
Hold a cold one like he hold an old gun, like he hold the microphone and stole the show for fun.
Pretty beautiful sample flip to start, and it's really enhanced by this cheering sound effect looped throughout the instrumental, again from Maria Bethânia, though this time from her 1968 track, Molambo.
Stole the show for fun, or a foe for ransom, flows is handsome, O's in tandem, anthem.
And would you look at that, even the Jack Margola's Weed album makes a comeback, with a sample from the track Making Love.
Great.
Yeah, this is good.
Great stuff. Great stuff.
Yeah, this is good.
Great stuff.
But as for our final sample on Madvillainy, fittingly enough, it's a repeat of the documentary history of the cult villain sampled in the opener.
Sometimes they were comedic, or relentlessly horrifying. Sometimes they were comedic, or relentlessly horrifying.
Overall, a very strong showing from Rhinestone Cowboy, so let's see if the Hoe Cakes remix can compete with its only sample. Our final sample to go over in this video, a flip of the 1968 track by Motown R&B group The Originals titled You're the One.
Except some little girl as my wife.
I got this girl and she wants me to duke her. I told her I'll come scoop her around 8, she said.
And dare I say, this remix rivals the original Hoe Cakes in terms of production. It is seriously that good. But do I think that it can beat the 4-piece combo that Rhinestone Cowboy comes through with? Well, the answer is, drumroll please, no. No, it cannot. I'm sorry, but I just think that the double stacking of the Maria Benthania samples are too clean of a combo to top, which means Madvillainy is the official winner of the MF Doom sample verses. Truthfully, I'm a little bit surprised since I'm in the minority of people that think Food is the slightest bit better than Madvillainy. But like I always say in these videos, the winner of this is completely arbitrary. In reality, both of these albums are basically 10 out of 10s for me, and feature some of the coolest sample flips of all time. And of course, before we wrap up and go to the outro, please don't skip, this is important. Rest in peace to Daniel Dumil, Zevlevex, King Ghidorah, Victor Vaughn, Metal Fingers, the Illest villain, your favorite rapper's favorite rapper, the greatest to ever do it in my opinion, MF motherfucking Doom. After nearly 200 samples, 29 pages of script, and however many minutes, we are finally done with the MF Doom Madvillainy vs. Food sample verses. And if you made it this far, genuinely from the bottom of my heart, thank you for sticking through with me. This was undoubtedly my biggest project yet, and all I can really hope for is that I did these two records justice with the final product. But as always, if you enjoyed, make sure to like the video and subscribe to my channel to see new uploads from me every single Saturday, and sometimes Wednesday, unless I say otherwise in my community posts. Also leave a comment letting me know which of these 200-something samples was your favorite and why. And finally, if you'd like to support the channel further, you can now become a member and receive early access to all of my videos, as well as a special shout out from me at the end of them, as you'll see on screen right now. So join up if you're interested, it really does help me out a lot. But yeah, that's about it. Thank you for watching.